My pulse keeps racing as the weight of what I've done keeps dawning on me afresh. I can still hear them rejoicing and laughing from the dining. They don't know what I have done. I stand over the gas cooker, peering into the pot of soup, shaking as the single phrase that chills my blood continues replaying in my head. I have done something terrible. I'm a murderer. My name is Mosuirat, and when you read this in the newspaper tomorrow, you're going to hate me. I don't expect you to understand, but I have to explain myself, explain what pushed me down this one-way road of no return so that my story can serve as a lesson to the world about the wickedness that resides in the heart of man and how a beautiful soul was turned dark and a kind-hearted girl was turned into a murderer. Okay, I don't have much time. Before I let the emotions overcome me, let me sit down and tell you my story. I come from a village in Osun State, Nigeria. My parents had more children than money, and my earliest years growing up was filled with so much memories of sleeping hungry and waking with tummy aches carried all through the night. But I was happy. I had brothers and sisters, and we would play together and run round the compound, and at night we took turns in telling stories under mango tree while the moonlight provided a luminescent illumination that seemed to add some kind of flavor to the night's tales. I was the youngest child of my parents. I had 3 elder sisters and 4 brothers, and right from the moment I could walk, I was expected to contribute my own quota to the family growth. My parents had a farmland, and our daily routine was simple enough: go to the farm and till the soil, water the earth, harvest the crops. It all depended on the stage and the season of the crops. Other days I assisted my mother in our shop where she sold provisions. But sadly, the business was not really moving. We didn't get as much customers as we normally should have because our next door neighbor also had a shop. And 2 houses down, there was another shop. They both sold the same goods we did and more. Their shops were even much bigger than ours, more attractive and painted with bright colors, with the goods arranged and displayed in a beautiful manner that just seemed to call to the customers, while ours was a rundown shop with peeling paint and cracks in the walls. If I were to be a customer, I know where I'll be going to buy the things I needed. Still, I loved our little shop. I would arrange the Coca-Cola bottles in the crate, imagining they were my pupils and I was their teacher. I had a dream to be a teacher, to educate little children and tell them that no matter how poor they were or where they came from, they didn't have to let the background define them. They could still change their lives and make it better. I attended the community school a stone's throw away from my home, and my father decided my daily trips to the farm be suspended till weekends. And so every afternoon after school, I stayed in the shop with my sister while my mother went to town to run some errands. The woman who would change my life came to the shop on a sunny Wednesday afternoon. After school, I had gone straight to the shop as usual, so I was still in my uniform, hunched over the broken fridge in the corner as I tried to tackle the quantitative reasoning homework our teacher had given us. I liked math and always enjoyed calculating our customers' bill and subtracting their change from the cost. I was hungry. I hadn't eaten that day, and until my mother came back from the market to cook, there was nothing I could do but wait. Although I could easily take one of the biscuits we sold in the shop, but the last time I had done that, my mother had given me a thorough beating for stealing. After my tears had died down, she had hugged me and told me not to cry anymore, that all I had to do was ask. She said she didn't want me to grow to be a thief, and from that day she frequently bought little treats for me from the market. Till today I don't know how she found out about the biscuit I stole, but no matter how hungry I got, I always preferred to wait for her, knowing she would get me something, and if she didn't, I only had to ask. Besides, they had taught me in my social studies class about stealing, and I never wanted to be a thief. Never. On that fateful day, I was alone in the shop. My eldest sister Symbiat always left me to go God knows where every afternoon, but she always came back before my mother returned from the market, making my mother think she had been in the shop all along. I suspected she went to see a boy because he had accompanied her back once. I didn't understand what she saw in boys. They were rough and dirty and always insulting the girls in my school. But my sister didn't share my thoughts about them, so I was usually alone in the shop for 2 hours every afternoon. I was cracking my head over the quantitative exercise, tapping my pencil on my head when the jeep drove to the front of the shop. The shiny color of the vehicle caught my attention immediately, and I shut my textbook as I admired the way the sun glinted on the gleaming red surface. The moment the woman got down, I began to fear. I don't know why, I don't know what it was about her, but I found myself wishing she wasn't coming to our shop but would pass and go to the more attractive and neatly arranged shop of our neighbor. But she proved me wrong and approached our shop. I got up immediately and smiled just as my mother always instructed me. A friendly service would always bring the customer back, again and again. So I smiled, looking at the woman as she approached. She removed her glasses slowly and her eyes almost caused my smile to disappear. There was something in her eyes. Something hard that made me want to run away. But I was determined to make the sale, so I greeted her, "Good afternoon, Ma." She swept my whole length with her eyes and looked around the scanty shop. She didn't seem impressed by either of us. "Are you the only one here?" "Yes, Ma," my mother went out. She looked at me and I began to feel uneasy. "What's your name?" she asked. "Mosuirat, Ma," I replied. "Mosuirat, how old are you?" "I'm 11 years old, Ma." And you're handling this shop? Do you know what you're doing?" "Yes, Ma, I know the prices of everything." Okay, I want to buy eggs." She continued watching me with her narrow eyes as I selected our freshest eggs for her. When she was done, she gave me a 1,000 naira note and instructed me to keep the change. I was overjoyed. I watched her walk back to her car and even waved at her when she looked back once more. Later, I told my sister about the woman with the wicked eyes and the kind heart and how she had left over 800 naira behind, which was about half the week's profit in one single day. My mother was also overjoyed when she came back and she gave me not one, but 2 biscuits from the shelf. I slept happily that night. The rest of the week went on as usual. I went to school in the morning and kept watch in the shop in the afternoon. Saturdays were spent in the farm. It was hard work, digging the soil and pulling out the cassava root crops and piling it into the basket, but I loved it. It was my favorite day of the week because I got to play with my brothers and sisters. That Saturday, I was running around with my empty basket on my head, laughing and shouting while my brothers clapped and drummed on theirs and my sisters sang. We may not have had much, we were yet to even eat breakfast, but we were happy. When my mother burst onto the clearing, the singing stopped immediately and we all scattered to our respective spots, feigning serious devotion to our duties. But my mother didn't scold us or pay us any attention. She had a spring in her step and a glint in her eye as she shouted my name and beckoned me to follow her. "Mosu, God has finally answered our prayers, come with me, drop the basket." She held my hands and walked briskly and I had to skip to keep up with her. "Mama, what is going on?" "My child, you're going to have a better life. A family has come for you. They will take you to the city and provide quality education for you and take good care of you." "But Mama, I don't want to go." I tugged her hand and she held me fast. "Look here, Mosu, I'm your mother and I know what is best for you. Do you know how many people are looking for this opportunity God has decided to bless you with?" I was silent. "Now when we get to the shop, I want you to be on your best behavior, okay?" I nodded solemnly and she hugged me. "It is well, my child." From the distance I could see the very same jeep I had seen earlier in the week. It still gleamed in the early Saturday sun and I suddenly knew who had come for me. The woman sat on the only chair in the shop while another man leaned on our broken fridge. My father was standing in the corner, still in his singlet, his skin caked with the patches of sweat that had dried at different stages that morning. He looked nervous and was shuffling his feet nervously. I did not like to see him like that. When we entered the shop, he gave a sigh of relief. Oh, there she is. Mosuirat, these nice people are here because of you. Good afternoon, Ma. Good afternoon, sir. I knelt down as a sign of respect. Oh, what wonderful manners, the man said, and when I looked at him, I felt a great fear at the way his eyes narrowed at me. I quickly looked away and my eyes ran into the glare of the woman. Her eyes were still hard, but she had a thin smile. It was not comforting but scary. I didn't want to go with these people. Okay, honey. I guess we'll take her, the man said and straightened up. The woman he called honey also stood up from the chair. She turned to my mother. We'll be here tomorrow morning, please ensure she's ready. Yes, Ma. My mother half knelt in gratitude, and I didn't like it either. I didn't like the way my parents were shaking at the sight of these rich people with the wicked eyes. I watched the four of them as they left the shop, irritated at the way my mother kept bowing her head in reverence and the way my father kept shuffling his feet. Still, I wondered what was really going on. Then I saw the man bring out a wad of money and count it before handing it to my father, who also half bowed in gratitude. I held my head with both hands as a feeling of trepidation came over me. Did my parents just sell me? Moving to Lagos was like a dream come true. A dream I never knew I had. The drive was a quiet one, and I tried my best not to cry as I remembered the teary goodbyes I had shared with my siblings that morning. I missed them already. I wondered when I would see them again. But then, the buildings began to catch my fancy, the people standing at the road, dressed colorfully, the cars and bikes, the yellow and black buses, the young men standing on the road, collecting money from the buses, the numerous colorful signboards. It was something I had never seen before in my life. For the first time, I began to feel I was really lucky. What did my mother say earlier? That a lot of people dreamt of this kind of opportunity, and here I was, in Lagos, to live the dream. But I would come to learn that there are dreams and there are nightmares. I was to call her madam, and call him ogre. I was to wake up every morning by 4 o'clock and sweep the compound and mop the floors, rewash the dishes I washed the night before and wipe the furniture in the house till it sparkled. Then I was to wash the clothes I had soaked the night before, wash the toilets and bathroom so that Madam and Ogre could have their bath. If I performed my duties diligently, then they would send me to the public school in the neighborhood. If I kept on with my duties without slacking and making mistakes, then they would withdraw me and place me in a private school. We don't want any useless liability in this house, am I clear? Madam snapped after telling me my duties. I nodded hurriedly. My instructions were very clear and it became my mantra, chanted over and over along with the multiplication table they had taught me in my former school. The first few weeks I started living with them, I cried myself to sleep most times because I missed my family, missed my sisters and my brothers and missed my parents. I performed my duties because Madam had a temper. She never hit me, but she would always go through the dishes, checking for any trace of oil, or running her finger along the center table, for any trace of dust. It was always clean, but I began to imagine if they would send me back home if I slacked in my duties. To be honest, I wouldn't mind. Ogre, on the other hand, hardly paid me any attention. He was not interested in the cleanliness of the house and only shouted at me if I did not polish his shoes properly. The days went by in a monotonous routine and became a blur. I found release only at night, when my tired limbs were stretched on the bed and I had few hours to myself to reminisce about my village and remember the fun times I used to have with my brothers and sisters. Then one night I was pulled out of the sweet escape of my dream. I was back in the farm, dancing, with my basket balanced on my head while my brothers clapped and my sisters sang, when a hand suddenly clamped over my mouth and pulled me out of the sunny dream to the reality of the dark room. Ogre was in my room and he had his trouser on the bed. He was naked. Residues of the dream and sleep still clouded my senses, and I was confused. What was going on? I could still hear the clapping and singing from the dream deep in my head, and I thought maybe I was having another dream, somehow dreaming inside my dream. The pain that spread from in between my legs was unbelievable, and it shattered every illusion. I cried out, but Ogre's hand was over my mouth. "Shhhhh, if you make any noise I'd kill you and your poor parents would die of hunger. I bought you, you're my property now." His big hands muffled my sobs and his animalistic grunts filled my ears. I would never hear the beautiful songs of my sisters, or the clapping and drumming of my brothers again. That grunt is all I would hear whenever I closed my eyes. He left as quickly and silently as he came, although it felt like forever. I lay in the dark, crying softly as the pain spread to my very soul. Just in one moment I had lost everything. I was broken, I was confused, and I felt betrayed. I never wanted this. My parents had betrayed me for money, all in the guise of sending me off to a better environment, but in reality they had sold me off to slavery. I was a slave, a modern slave, but a slave nonetheless. I spent the night crying, unable to sleep, unable to forget what Ogre had done to me, but unwilling to remember it. The cock crowed by 4 a.m., which was my normal alarm to get up and begin my daily chores, but I ignored it.